The Toronto Raptors just made one of the biggest trades in franchise history, dealing away Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers in a package that, despite the reports that came out, despite all of the news that's been going down over the past couple of weeks, really shocked everyone. And this Woj bomb that sort of came out, I was sitting down on a plane when this news was released, so I'm a couple hours late, touched down in Boston, found a corner in this airport so I can react to this trade because, frankly, it is madness. So basically, Pascal Siakam's going to the Indiana Pacers, and back to Toronto is Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, 3 first-round picks, as well as Kira Lewis Jr. And the picks are 2024 from the Indiana Pacers, another pick that's coming from Indiana, but it is sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of trades. Apparently, it's the worst of the draft picks from the Houston Rockets, the Utah Jazz, the LA Clippers, as well as potentially the Pacers. There's 4 teams involved with it, but probably a mid to late first-round pick on top of this deal, as well as an unprotected pick in 2026. So, I saw some people calling it, I forget who it was in our comment section, saying, the OG Anunoby trade would be for players, and this trade would be for picks. Well, they were correct. The picks are really the central piece in this trade package for Pascal Siakam. Couldn't get Walker, couldn't get Benedict Mathurin, but this is an interesting deal. It's not sort of what we were hoping, and it's better than the sort of reported Buddy Hield as well as Bruce Brown trade that ended up going, was rumored a couple days ago, but I still am a little bit shook up about this trade package. Yes, we knew the writing was on the wall. We knew how awkward it was getting for the Toronto Raptors and Pascal Siakam being out there on the court together, but Pascal Siakam is a huge piece to this team, and obviously the reins are getting handed now to Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, as well as Emmanuel Quickley, but he took up a brunt of that scoring load, and the Raptors have been known to go on these sort of stretches without sort of effective offensive scoring for, offensive droughts for a long period of time. Without Pascal Siakam, that's likely only going to get worse. And right now in the short term, we have a lot of guards. Obviously, Bruce Brown is a player that gets a lot of boards, can play big. For the Brooklyn Nets for a couple seasons ago, he was a guy that did play power forward at times, but he's only 6'4". He's 27 years old. He's not... Despite him being the best player that we got back, he is not really exactly what we should be expecting. And there's speculation that more moves could be made with Bruce Brown, who'd be valuable to as a role player for a championship contending team, as he just won a ring last year. Some teams would definitely be interested in Bruce Brown, but the Toronto Raptors, due to his not immaculate shooting, only 32% from the three-point line, plays solid defense, which is definitely a hole that we need filled following the OG Anunoby trade. Can play a little bit big, can get some boards, but isn't exactly what we need, because the Raptors have a lot of role players right now, a lot of not central pieces, so I don't know, Bruce Brown could be a part of the future. His contract situation, he has a team option coming this offseason, so we can decide to keep him for at least the next 2 seasons, or deal him away at this year's trade deadline, or let him walk in free agency and open up all of that cap space. So, that's Bruce Brown, who's the central piece. One player that people will probably make a whole video on him later with more research and things, but Jordan Nwora is also a player that has a lot of potential, or at least impressed me when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks in terms of his ability to score the basketball. This season, only shooting 30% from behind the three-point line. Hasn't gotten a lot of run for the Indiana Pacers, but generally has been a microwave player off the bench. This season, again, a down shooting year, but he's a guy that can hit from the corners. He can sort of hit from the midi range. He's effective kind of all around the court, but is a guy that is sort of, if you expect him to play on the Toronto Raptors, I'm not sure I do, given the fact that we have a multitude of guards now on this Toronto Raptors team. He's a guy that expect to get buckets, not play a ton of defense, not be an insane contributor. But the Raptors right now, we went from going all 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" players, those wings, sort of athletic defenders that can't really shoot, to a lot of guys now on this roster that play the point guard, play the 2-guard position. Right now, we have Dennis Schroeder, we have Emmanuel Quickley, we have RJ Barrett, we have Gary Trent Jr., now we have Bruce Brown, we have Jordan Nwora, and then we also have Kira Lewis Jr., who's coming in from the New Orleans Pelicans, who has a lot of Pelicans fans frustrated, and that's really the only thing I could gain on him, making this a video here. Again, we'll do deeper dives into all these guys when we have more time to sort of digest everything, break everything down, but I know he's a player that had a lot of potential coming into the league. A lot of Pelicans fans are pretty hyped on him. Their team I follow half closely with the Zion situation and things along those lines, but he's frustrated a lot of people as of late. So they're happy to sort of get off of his contract. He was just thrown in there to sort of get rid of the money, just get rid of his headache, similar to Malachi Flynn. So I wouldn't be too excited about his potential, but we'll see. We'll see what these guys could potentially do, diving into more highlights and things like that. But my heart still is just a little bit shook. It's a little bit cheese about Pascal Siakam getting dealt away from this team. Again, reports are coming out that he's heartbroken. He is shocked that the Toronto Raptors are so adamant on dealing him away and did end up trading him away to the Indiana Pacers. He's excited to go with that team. Again, him and Halliburton are going to be a really dynamic duo there with Mathurin and the young guys that they have on that roster. But the 3 first-round picks is nice, but it's an insane risk. It is a major, major risk for Masai Ujiri. Personally, I thought we should have just extended him, given him the extra years, and we'll talk about the offers that were potentially offered to him. We're recording the multiple reports that have come out, but I still think you should have given Pascal Siakam his money, because even though 3 first-round picks are nice, even though Bruce Brown is a good player that you could potentially flip or utilize if we sort of shake up our roster a certain way, we could have got more for Pascal Siakam. We could have gotten more, and Masai Ujiri is now banking on these draft picks to really solidify this team's future. And then we've heard a lot of talk about the draft in 2024 being kind of a crapshoot, being not that great, but people have said that about a lot of drafts. I feel like whenever a draft is touted as being one of the best, it ends up being a few flops in there, and then drafts that just get overlooked, get kind of ignored, they end up being, harboring some of the better players in the NBA. So I'm not reading too much into how good the draft is. Haven't watched a lick of college basketball this year, so no real actual insight into that. But the Raptors could potentially have, they have 2 now from Indiana and the worst of these draft picks. There's weird protections on them, so potentially that one doesn't pan out. But then the biggest risk, regarding this one is because the Raptors have actively nuked their team. We have no forwards now at this point. We've traded away Scotty Barnes has probably been our best player this year, but outside of him, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, we've dealt away number 2 and 3. So the Toronto Raptors are probably betting on bottoming out here now at this point. And last season, if you aren't familiar, the Toronto Raptors traded away their first-round pick to the San Antonio Spurs in a pick that is now top 6 protected. So if they get into the bottom 6, if their draft lands in there, obviously they can have a bottom 6 record, and then their draft pick doesn't end up converting still. It could fall out of the top 6, top 7. But if they're in the top 6 in this year's NBA draft, they keep their draft selection. So maybe this is a way of Masai Ujiri sort of making a push for the bottom, dealing them away, and then it's addition by subtraction by getting rid of Pascal Siakam, staying out of the mid area. But again, massive risk, because even if we are that bad, the Wizards were not catching them, the Pistons were not catching them, the Spurs were not catching them from the bottom. I mean, it's going to be tough. The Grizzlies are also a team we're going to have to tank with now at this point. We're not sure what's going to happen with the Atlanta Hawks. We still have some good players on this roster, so it's going to be difficult to sort of keep that draft pick and guarantee that that's going to happen going forward. So the Raptors are kind of bottoming out this team, and maybe Masai has seen the effectiveness of playing without a center in terms of tanking a team. So, he deals away Pirtle now. We just run that out there on the court, even some talented pieces, but no big men in the front line to absolutely cook us. It's Masai Ujiri's sure way to tank a season. I don't know what direction he's going to go in, but risking a rebuild, risking a tank when you don't even have your draft pick for the season, it's a bold play. It's a bold play, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But you guys are the best to make us far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. We're going to be diving into all of this sort of trade talk over the next day or so with everything going on. But I'm going to be posting at my buddy's apartment here in Boston. So lots of vids coming out for sure. Anyways, you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.